An interesting development has taken place within the past day or so. If anyone remembers the shooting over at Brown University and how they tried to pick up one person, and that person wasn't the one who did the senseless killing and tragedy. So they went back to square one, the authorities. But somehow they found another person who essentially not only killed those people, two killed and 9 injured, I believe, at Brown University, but their suspect had also later on killed an MIT professor. Now, it is not necessarily known why, or exactly why, the person killed these two people, or killed the professor and the 2 people at Brown University. But he did, I think he ended up killing himself within a storage unit. Interesting. But that's not the most interesting part of all this. After doing some investigation, they found the identity of this man who presumably or allegedly committed the atrocities over at Brown University and who killed the professor at MIT. And this particular person happens to be a naturalized Portuguese man. And I thought that was quite interesting, that the one who killed those people senselessly, including the MIT professor, was a person who came from Portugal. Tying him to the MIT professor, the professor who was shot or who was killed was also Portuguese. Now, of course, my mind went back to the person who killed those 2 National Guardsmen from West Virginia. Well, killed one, wounded the other one. And the person who did that was allegedly an Afghan national. Now, right after the person who killed those 2 National Guards, or shot those National Guardsmen, didn't kill both, shot one, killed the other one. As soon as that happened, an edict went out to bar any immigrants to come from certain countries, most of them in Africa, but also including Afghanistan and so on. And in fact, those with Afghan nationalities, those who essentially came to the U.S. on visas, even those who had fled the Taliban, they wanted to give a thorough review of those people that came from Afghanistan. And I understand that. Because you want to make sure that those that are coming into the United States were coming in based upon the reasons that you would think. Fleeing the Taliban, some of them had helped the United States while they were in Afghanistan, and so they feared retaliation by the Taliban if they stepped foot back into Afghanistan itself. Now, of course, I think it went a little bit overboard to bar everyone from that country from coming over here. But okay, it feeds a fear that there are people that just are itching to come in and shoot and kill American citizens. Okay? But I begin thinking about this as you find out that a Portuguese person killed more people than that Afghan did. So my question is, do we bar Portuguese people from coming to the United States? After all, a Portuguese person came in, allegedly, and shot all those people at Brown University and killed the MIT professor. But that he killed himself, he did what he wanted to do. So do we now put restrictions on the number of Portuguese people to come to the United States? Now, before you say anything, understand that every time a minority tends to get on the other side of the law, whether it's an immigrant that came over the border, whether it's a Somali who essentially are taking advantage of public programs, or if it's the Haitians who are eating cats and dogs, things that normal people would never do. And so you figure that if you're basing it on nationalities, then you might as well put Portugal on that list of countries that I believe our dear leader of the Homeland Security has given this list to the president, who said, I'm only too glad to put this list out. Because, of course, it contains all these, for lack of a better word, blank hole countries. Now, some of you may think that this is tongue-in-cheek, that I'm just kind of ruminating and maybe for comedic effect. And believe me, I'm not trying to do this for comedy. I'm not trying to do this to make a sick joke. But I'm talking about this because if we're that afraid of certain people to come into this country, even people who have proven their worth to the United States by helping them when essentially others would have said, don't do it, it will cause you great harm not only to yourself, but to your family as well. But they did it. They helped us. But this man from Portugal, for whatever reason, and I don't think he all shot just Portuguese students at Brown. What is his motivation? Maybe it's ISIS. Maybe this Portuguese person that joined ISIS. That's a possibility. Don't know. This is conjecture. But as I'm throwing this out to you, I want you to remember that the same person who barred all these countries because of their supposed animosity against the United States, then you have to ask, it's Portugal against the United States? Is Portugal full of people that just can't wait to bring down the U.S. government? Is Portugal going to be on that list of countries that have either partial or total restrictions? Probably not. And why is that? The only thing that I can think of that's different between the Afghan and the Portuguese is that one is in Asia, the other one's in Europe. And remember our president asking we should get more people to immigrate to this country from European nations, from places like Sweden, Norway, Germany, all these particular places that, of course, no one ever thinks about attacking the U.S. That comes from that country. But I began to think about that, and I even heard a podcast about it. But why would they even want to come here? Most don't. They love their country. They want to stay in their country. And most likely they'll end up dying in their country. Which is as it should be, right? You're in your country, you live, you work, you play, and eventually you pass on to the next generation in your country. But a Portuguese person came to the United States and gunned down or shot seemingly 13 people. Is it 13? 14 people. No, 13 people. Sorry, 12 people. 11 at Brown, 1 at MIT. The only other thing I can think of, and who wants to be able to think of that? Because I believe it is a blatant representation. I mean the response that came from this shooting of holding one group of people higher than the other. I'm sure that Portugal will be excused. This person may have been a nut job, may have been a person who had a grievance against particular people. It happens, right? And yes, it does. It happens. But let someone from a blank whole country attempt to shoot one person, and the entire group of people is then banished from the United States. And we try to get ways of getting. I'm sure you've heard that the birthright amendment is being tried by the judicial, by the Supreme Court. And the key is whether those that are born in the United States are citizens by their birth, whether they can start taking them out. But it's all because of supposedly a plan thought of very carefully by those who wanted to pull down the United States to flood them with immigrants from these particular countries. And of them, of course, are people that have been freed from their jails to go to the United States so they can create mayhem, lowering down, of course, our defenses. And we then become susceptible to the whims and cares of other nations, bringing down our power. But I just can't get it out of my mind. And I'm trying to think of this very carefully. That why would you treat one country different than another when practically the same thing happened to both? At least the Afghan. I'm not saying this is a great thing, but when he shot somebody, they were at least somewhat trained to fight back. And they did. They wounded that Afghan. So they'll find out at some time what the motivation was. At least that's the hope. They didn't kill him, but they've now held him. Or held him. But I'm sure that when dealing with the Portuguese man, no ties to the mother country of Portugal will be made. And most likely, essentially, this is a one-off. So Portugal will be free to send its people to the United States, as well as Spain, France, Great Britain, Belgium, Germany, and so on. Yes, even little Luxembourg. But the question I have, and this is what keeps bothering me, is that why is there a difference? Anyone from any country, because they're mankind, could have some type of beef, goes off, shoots people. Cain had a beef with his brother, killed him. You say, well, Elder Haman, that's not the same. It's not. Someone had an art against certain people, certain groups of people, and they carried it out, and they put someone in harm's way, and were successful in killing at least one person, if not more. So then the next thing becomes, if people of European descent start killing people, and there are some that have, do we dig in their history and begin to deport those who have immigration papers, or to take those out that find some way of putting them in their own country? That's not going to happen, because they look just like you. Oh, that's what it is. Because the Portuguese man looks like me, but the Afghan man, that's something entirely different. But you call it for what it is. And again, it's not that I don't mourn the people who died at the hands of the killer who was from Portugal. And my heart does go out to the national security or the National Guard members that were either shot and killed, or shot or killed. That should never happen. But the question is, do you punish an entire people for the sins of one? Think about it. There have been many atrocities committed by people of all races in this country. Black people have killed. White people have killed. Latinos have killed. Asians have killed. We see it happening every day. So, once more, do we begin to deport people of every race if one of their members ends up harming someone who is an American? I think it makes no sense, right? Yeah, you're right. Doesn't make sense. So why do we have two separate ways of dealing with people? And I don't mean just one person, I mean an entire group, ethnicity. Just thinking. God bless you.